Hey, we're live.
Okay,
Wait, Carrie, can I
I'm
hear you?
right here. I'm right here. Yeah, I
I
gotta.
cannot hear you now.
Can you
Mm,
hear me now?
it might be my fault. Let me reinsert. I think this happened previously too. Oh, now I can hear you. Hi,
Hi, Oliver. How are you?
Carrie. Good, good. I'm doing good. I just had lunch with some family. So
Nice. What
yeah,
part of California are you in right now?
I am in Irvine today.
Oh, not
Yeah,
too far.
not too far. Where are you based?
I'm in Long Beach.
Long Beach. Oh, we were in Long Beach yesterday, I think.
Hmm.
Was I in Long Beach yesterday? Yeah, I was in Long Beach yesterday. Yeah.
It all runs together.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't even know what day of the week it is. But yeah. Long Beach is beautiful.
Yeah, yeah. I love Irvine too, though. They're two completely different worlds.
Definitely.
So, hey, I wanted to ask you, some Californians don't even understand the difference between lieutenant governor and governor. Can you talk about that a little bit?
Definitely. And I see Slow is in the house as well. We were in
Yeah.
Slow to last week. Yeah.
I love
Slow's awesome.
slow,
Yeah. Yeah. Always looking for an excuse to come out to Slow.
for
Uh,
real.
but the lieutenant governor
Hmm.
is somewhat different from the situation we have going on for president and vice president. So, unlike president and vice president, which are on one ticket, the lieutenant governor and governor are two separate elections, two separate offices, two separate tickets. And so, we have had in California a Democrat as governor and a Republican as lieutenant governor slash vice versa. And because
Hmm.
it's a separate election, it has um, some separate job duties as well. And so,
Sure.
some of the big things that I really want to do with this position are number one, the lieutenant governor is president of the state senate. And that's where I would be able to co sponsor legislation. And so, I want to
Okay.
really focus on protecting immigrant families, which includes shutting down the for profit ICE prisons, um, holding ICE thugs accountable for shooting moms and nurses and legal observers, and funding our volunteer rapid response networks across the state.
Hmm.
The lieutenant governor is also chairs the state commission on economic development. So it's my job to advise the governor and the state legislature on what our economy needs. And so, for me, and I think most Californians, the biggest thing holding back our economy is the cost of housing. And so, making housing more affordable, solving our housing crisis, making our housing system more fair, those are all big priorities for me. And then lastly,
Sure.
the lieutenant governor is on our UC, Cal State, and Community College Board of Governors. And on each of those boards, I want to fight to make our universities tuition free, to make housing available and affordable for students, and to divest all of our universities from genocide and apartheid in Palestine, because I think our tax dollars are better used investing in kids here in California instead of bombing kids in other countries.
Of course. Of course. So, how would you? I'm thinking about questions that follow. I did a poll. I asked followers questions to ask you. And speaking on that, one of my followers wanted to know how you would stand up if we have a potential Republican governor. How would you stand up to them?
Yeah, so that's another function of the lieutenant governor, actually, that I didn't talk about. So we have a very weird quirk in our constitution where whenever the governor, the California governor, is out of state, then the
Hmm.
lieutenant governor becomes the acting governor. And so if the governor is out of state for 2 minutes, the lieutenant governor becomes acting governor for 2 minutes. If they're out of state for 2 weeks, then I would become acting governor for 2 weeks. And in that position, our lieutenant governor is able to sign legislation, veto legislation, appoint judges, et cetera, et cetera. And they can be a real thorn on the side of the agenda of whichever
Hmm.
governor we have. And so I hope it's someone that is aligned with us when it comes to values. and
Right.
it's someone that we can work with and cares about working people. But if it's not,
Right.
I have to tell them, we can work together for 4 years, or I can be a serious thorn on your side for 4 years. And
Right.
hopefully it's someone we can push on the values that we have.
I'm hoping. I'm hoping. Um, I want to touch base on the affordability, the cost of living, the housing that you mentioned. Can you talk a little bit about corporate landlords and what you plan to do about that, and rent caps, and your plans as far as how renters are going to get through this crazy expensive time?
Yeah, absolutely. So everyone running for office, their solution to our housing crisis is we need to build more. Build, build, build. And I also think we do need to build more. And many elected officials, candidates, including myself, have signed a pledge to build 1 million new affordable homes in California. However, currently there are 1.2 million units, housing units in California that are vacant, completely empty. So if we got rid of that problem, we don't need to build a single new affordable home. So why are there 1.2 million units vacant? The corporate landlords are a big part of that. So imagine if you own 1,000 homes
Hmm.
and you leave 200 of those empty. Well, you're not collecting rent on those 200, but by artificially reducing the housing supply and creating this housing crisis, you get to charge more for rent on the other 800. And not only that, because you're creating this housing crisis, the value of every single home in your entire 1,000 home portfolio also goes up. So these corporate
Oh,
landlords in California who have thousands, tens of thousands of homes in their portfolios, they have an incentive to leave units empty to create a housing crisis. And no matter how many homes we build, if these corporate landlords own them, they will keep on having that incentive. They will keep on leaving units empty, and we will always have a housing crisis. This housing crisis is engineered by these corporate landlords. And also, by the way, I think young people, working people, we are never going to be able to compete against a $1 billion private equity company to buy a home. They're always going to be able to outbid us, and then they get to charge whatever they want in rent. And so
mhm.
I think homes should be for regular people to live in and not for corporate landlords to be investing in. And so that's the big thing I want to fight for. Yes, we need to build more housing. Yes, we need to protect tenants a lot more than we currently are. But also we need to make sure that homes are for regular people and not for corporate landlords.
Sure. Is it, I always wonder this, if there are a bunch of units that are empty, it creates, a problem as far as how many houses are available, but can they also write it off as like lost rent or something? I always wonder about that. Because in my city, there are places that have been vacant for decades, like I think almost 2 decades now. And I always wonder about that. Do they leave it empty because it's a tax write-off or like lost income? I always wonder about that. Do you have any insight on that?
I actually don't know. I unfortunately I never took corporate law in law school.
Yeah,
And I don't know actually a lot of the evil shenanigans that they take advantage of in our tax code. I see like all the bad stuff they do in our communities, but
sure.
that I actually don't know.
I don't know. I'm always curious about it because I drive by this place all the time, and it's literally been empty at least since 2008. And it's because I remember that year because I had something big going on then. And I always think like, how would you just let this sit empty? Right. And sometimes people don't even live in the United States, the ones that own those units, right? Okay.
Yes.
So would you try to support rent caps? How would you, what's your thought on that?
Yeah. And I also see a question in the chat. Oliver, you are a DSA member. What kind of socialist are you? Are you a market socialist? Um, that's a good question. So I'll try to address both of these questions.
Hmm.
When it comes to a rent cap, I do support rent control. And I don't think rent control is the long term structural solution that we need in our housing system. But I do
Sure.
think it's very important for keeping a lot of people housed and keeping them in their homes and in their neighborhoods and in their communities in the
Sure.
meantime until we get a permanent solution to our housing crisis. Now,
Right.
when it comes to, and I already said, I think the big issue is the corporate landlords in our housing supply.
Right.
Am I a market socialist?
Right.
I believe the things that people fundamentally need to survive: water, electricity, housing, healthcare, education, should not only be provided because some corporate landlord or some corporation can profit from exploiting our need for that thing. And
Mhm.
so, we have a free market housing market right now, and as a result, these billion-dollar private equity companies are buying hundreds of thousands of homes, making homes not available, reducing the housing supply, and exploiting people. I don't
Sure.
believe in that. I actually, so I grew up on the 23rd story of this tall apartment building in the middle of Beijing, a really modern apartment building. And my grandma got that unit for free for working as a public school teacher. And that was what allowed her to retire with dignity. And
Mhm.
that was what allowed her and my family to build wealth. And I think
Sure.
everyone here in the US should have that opportunity as well. Everyone in our country should have that. And so I think these basic needs need to be provided, other than like the luxury things,
Mhm.
if you want to, I don't know, do something really really luxurious and extravagant, yeah, and it doesn't really harm other people, then sure, I think that can be available on the market.
Right. Did you want to talk about the question that was in the chat?
On whether I'm a market socialist,
Yeah.
yeah, that was my answer.
Oh, okay, okay, okay. And as far as people, again, trying to get through these very expensive times, can you speak a little bit about your plan for minimum wage?
Yeah, so minimum wage, we need our minimum wage to be a living wage, because when our minimum wage is not a living wage, then that means we are subsidizing the profits of corporations, right? If, let's say, here in Irvine, or in, let's say, Orange County as a whole, right? The living wage is probably $25 an hour or more. And if your employer is only paying you $20 an hour, but the living wage is 25, well, where does the other $5 come from? It comes from taxpayers. It comes from our public systems. It comes from Section 8 vouchers and Medicaid and all of these other things, EBT. And so these corporations shouldn't be taking handouts from taxpayers. They should be paying everybody a living wage, so that when you're working and you're working a full-time job, 40 hours a week, you shouldn't have to rely on welfare. Um, yeah, so I support for the state as a whole, raising our minimum wage to at least $21 an hour. I think you could probably make a really good argument. It should be higher than $21 an hour.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, that's I think is so important for making sure there's economic opportunity and corporations are not stealing from taxpayers.
I think that that is so important. I think about other states across the country where the minimum wage is so low. I know it's cheaper to live in those states, but still, I don't know how people survive on it. It's just so expensive.
Yeah.
Um, let's talk about immigration. You're you're calling for abolishing ICE, correct? And you
Yes.
have experience as a civil rights attorney. What realistically can we look for at a state level?
Yeah. So there's actually a lot California can do. And I like this question. I'm going to put on my lawyer hat for this one. Also, Carrie, I think there's a little bit of an echo. Want to try muting your mic while we'll see if that makes it better.
Oh, while you're talking? Okay.
Yeah, yeah. That's testing, testing, testing. I think it might be better. Okay. Yes. So um, the there's several things California can do. In the first Trump administration, we actually passed a law to shut down these for-profit ICE prisons we have in our state. And the Ninth Circuit said that law is unconstitutional, because if the federal government wants to open for-profit ICE prisons and California doesn't, then these prisons get to stay open. Okay. But the Constitution also has what's called the anti-commandeering doctrine. And what that means is, if the federal government wants to do something, they cannot force California to turn over California resources to help them do that thing. So If the federal government wants to have these for-profit ICE prisons all over our state, yes, they can, but they cannot operate them and force California to give our water, our healthcare infrastructure, our power grid, our physical infrastructure, all of these things. They cannot force us to supply these for-profit prisons. And almost all of these for-profit prisons are in really marginalized communities out in the middle of nowhere. Many of them are in extremely small towns with very little jobs, with limited healthcare, limited water, limited power. And these for-profit prison they come promising a lot of jobs. Then they don't give those jobs because they're forcing the people inside to work for $1 a day. So they don't actually provide jobs to the community. But what they do is they make everything more expensive. They make water more expensive. They make healthcare more expensive. They make power more expensive. And these detention centers cannot operate without California's resources. So if we wean them off from California resources, they will be forced to shut down. I also think when ICE thugs are breaking the law, when they are shooting moms and nurses and legal observers, like we saw in Minnesota, they should be held accountable. Those thugs in Minnesota that killed Alex Preddy and Renee Good, they are not held accountable. And we need to make sure that California makes it very clear that if those thugs come to California and do the same thing, as they have sometimes done already in California, that they need to be held accountable like everybody else. If anybody goes and shoots people in public, if anybody goes and trespasses on property and beats people up and assaults people for no reason, like these ICE thugs have been doing, they need to be held accountable. And then lastly, our volunteer rapid response networks are doing so much to protect immigrant families across the state. Here in Kern County, we have, since Trump took office, we have trained more than 400 volunteers. And that is what allows us to send teams out when ICE is in people's communities, sometimes within 15 minutes. That is what allowed us to deliver food to thousands of families who've been afraid to go outside or go to work because of the raids. And those are all things volunteers are doing for free. And California, the least California can do is to fund these rapid response networks and support the important work that the volunteers have been doing.
We have an incredible network of people doing that here in Long Beach, and they are seriously incredible. Just took it upon themselves and just created their own system. It's been incredible. Did you ever hear
Yes.
about the ICE agent that was arrested here in Long Beach in
Yeah.
the restaurant?
For trying to assault women, right?
Yeah, he was off duty with a loaded firearm at a restaurant here, and he went in the women's bathroom. And eventually security got him outside of the restaurant, but then he wouldn't leave the parking lot, and the police showed up and arrested him. And I was so thankful that they were going to charge him with, I think it was 2 felonies and 3 misdemeanors. And it made me really proud of our local PD for taking action against that person, you know.
Yeah, these ICE thugs, they are the bottom of the barrel. The reason they are offering these people 50,000 signing on bonuses is because these are jobs that regular people do not want. People do not want. I mean, I talk to college students all the time. Not a single one of them want a job where they're ripping families apart, where they're assaulting people in the streets. And so that's why they're offering 50,000 signing on bonuses. But as a result, they get some of the worst people out there into this agency.
And isn't it true that they don't get their bonus up front? They have to work the full amount of time. Like they're getting tricked. Oh God, don't even get me started. California is already considered a sanctuary state by many conservatives, right? And we are a sanctuary state. What additional protections do you think we still need?
Yeah, those 3 that I talked about are 3 really big ones. What a sanctuary state means is the state will not collaborate with ICE or federal immigration enforcement. And so that means generally our prisons do not collaborate, our public agencies do not collaborate, and our police force do not collaborate. Now, the law is a little more complicated. There are some loopholes and also some agencies, they break the law to collaborate with ICE. But for the most part, we are a sanctuary state. But there's a lot more we can do. I think we need to close a lot of these loopholes. And we really need to take the profit incentive away. A big part of why these ICE raids are happening is because for every single person they catch that they throw into one of these for-profit prisons, these for-profit prisons are making hundreds of thousands of dollars from taxpayers. And then they donate a portion of their profits to Republicans and Democrats, who then vote to further expand this cruel system. And so taking that profit incentive away is going to do a lot to protect people. You know, this profit incentive is why they're going after day laborers and farm workers. It's why they have arrested so many Native Americans just because they have brown skin. They're just looking for brown bodies to throw in. So we need to shut these for-profit prisons down. That is going to be significant. And of course, the rapid response networks, right? There are so many things that our state government is unwilling or just not designed to do, like responding rapidly to federal immigration enforcement that violate the law. But volunteers have so much more roots in their communities, and are able to respond much more nimbly. And so I think California really needs to step up and protect and also fund these volunteer rapid response networks. I want to shout out to something very recent, which is the 805 and DocuFund, actually out in the San Luis Obispo area. One of the best rapid response networks around. They do such great work teaching the community about the Constitution and about their rights. They do such great work holding ICE accountable when ICE breaks the law. But just last week, federal agents raided the house of several leaders in the movement to try to intimidate them into stopping what they're doing, into stopping from protecting immigrant families. And we need to shout that out, but also California needs to do more to protect these rapid response networks.
I always wonder about that because I do worry that everything is so shaky right now, and I worry for our volunteers. I worry for myself, honestly, for speaking out sometimes, but it doesn't mean we should stop. We still have to push. And I also, on a side note, I worry that once we have change in our state government, I really don't want to forget about the people in detention centers. Like, how can we continue to raise more awareness on how we need to help them?
Yeah, it's the volunteers. They absolutely are some of the bravest people around. These are people who go to the site of the danger. It's like the weather people who go and chase tornadoes, right? That's what these volunteers are doing with these ice thugs. And the two people, Renee Good and Alex Preddy, who were shot in Minnesota, they are both legal observers with their rapid response networks. So these are people who are doing incredible work, who are so brave. Now, definitely, like, that is not for everybody. I always tell people, assess your own risk. But there are many ways that we can all get involved, even if we don't want to be on the front lines, rushing to the scene of the danger. Some really important things that people can do in their rapid response networks are you can be a hotline volunteer. So you can be on dispatch. When we get a call, you can be the person who directs the team out to where the call is coming from, right? You can be a delivery person, right? Delivering food and aid to families who are afraid to go outside. So there's so many ways that people can get involved and protect families with varying levels of risk. And now for your other question, how to keep the people who are in detention in our minds. Well, I think shutting down the detention centers is going to be a big one. That will reunite a lot of families. I have had the pleasure of representing people and getting them out of these detention centers. And there's nothing better than to be with their family that day that they get released and to witness their family being reunited. I had a client who was released last year, had been in the system for years and years. And I called him right when he got out, and I asked him, what's the first thing you're going to do? And he said he's going to go get an In-N-Out burger because he hasn't had real food in so long. And then I called him again later that evening, and the whole family was over having hot wings together. And I talked to his mom, I talked to his sisters, all of these wonderful people who never gave up on him, who always fought for him to be free. And now that he's free and they're all together having a meal, I mean, that's a victory that I'm always going to be able to take with me. And obviously for them, it is so important. So reuniting families, it is so worth it. It is so important. Shutting down these detention centers will be important. Changing the way the country feels about immigrants is also important. What we love to talk about on the campaign trail is lawyers cannot be the leaders of this change, right? I can win one lawsuit and reunite one family, but if we're not doing the real work of changing people's hearts and minds, changing how people see immigrants in our country and how people see our for-profit immigration detention system, then these individual victories are just individual victories. But we need to turn the individual victories into systemic change. And that's where we need to do the organizing. We need to do the storytelling. We need to train young people into leaders and get the permanent change that all of us deserve.
I could not agree more. I have to say, in my efforts in speaking out, I can't believe how misunderstood the whole immigration system and immigrants as people are. And it is so disappointing. I mean, I feel like I'm talking to a void sometimes when people say, immigrants don't have a mortgage or own a car. Yes, they do. It's just wild to me. I kid you not. These are comments I get. Um, okay, I want to talk about, there was something that just came out in the news this week regarding the green card. Can you speak on that a little bit? I know it's more of a federal thing, but I want to ease the minds of people that are in absolute fear over that right now. Do you know what I'm talking about? I'm sure you do.
I do, but I haven't looked into, like, I haven't done the legal research. So I hesitate to give legal advice to folks without having done the research. I also hesitate to, yeah, to talk about how likely or not likely this change is to hold up in court. I would guess that wonderful people are already working to stop this policy change through the legal process. I'm just not that plugged in at the moment. What I will say is, we tend to have this idea that there's a immigrant community in our country and that it's separate from the non-immigrant community. But the two are not separate, right? My sister and I growing up, we were US citizens, but my grandma was not. She didn't even have a green card when we were growing up. But she took care of us. She made food. She mentored us. She taught us so many important things. She made sure we always got up in time for school. All of these wonderful things. And there was an instance when I was in middle school where she was profiled and taken by these federal agents. And luckily, we were able to get her out. We were able to get her free. But she's not separate, right? All of these people who are being taken into these for-profit prisons, they are so important in their communities and in their families. And so taking these people away from that and throwing them into these for-profit prisons absolutely has an impact on the whole country and every single community. And so, this new change, which I read is forcing people to apply for green cards from outside of this country, that's going to have a real impact. My grandma, she was on a visa when I was growing up, and then eventually she applied for her green card. But if they forced her to leave the country, I mean, who was going to take care of me and my sister in the ways that my grandma was? And especially with this federal government, um, the amount that you cannot trust them. So many people are going to be afraid to leave the country for this, or so many people are going to leave and then never be able to come back and never be reunited with their families. So I think it's so dangerous.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. I would think it would make people not be inclined to follow the law because, like you said, they're living in absolute fear. So many are trying to do the right thing, and it's like no matter what, they're just up against a wall. So frustrating.
It reminds me of last year when they created this registry that immigrants had to register with. And that is so scary. I mean, I read back to history, Germany in the 1930s. I've always wondered why so many Jews didn't leave, or so many people who were affected by the Holocaust, why they didn't leave. Why did they stay? And a big part of that is because people just couldn't imagine the government would do something so evil. But it started with something like creating a registry, and it started with demonizing these people for the country's problems. And it started with first detaining these people and violating civil rights and violating the Constitution. And then it just became more and more and more sinister.
I know, so scary, so scary. I mean, terrifying. I'm not even an immigrant, and I just, oh. Can you talk a little bit about how you are not collecting any PAC money and how you are operating your campaign and this whole campaign? I mean, how do you do that without accepting PAC money?
Yeah, so there's a very traditional way of running campaigns, which is you you raise hundreds of thousands, millions of dollars from corporations, and then you blast it all on TV ads and social media ads. That's what the majority of our opponents in this race are doing. But that is why we have a politics that has failed so many people. Because if a corporation is giving you $100,000, you're going to pick up when they call. When they demand that you give them $200,000, $300,000 in taxpayer money, you're going to say yes. And we don't want to do that. We don't want to be owned by these corporations. And so there's only two sources that we're accepting money from, regular people and labor unions. And I'm super proud of that because I think regular people and labor unions, which represent working people, that should be the boss of every single elected official in the country. So we're only taking money from them. We've done a very good job of fundraising, more than enough to make us just as competitive as any other of these corporate candidates in the race. But what this approach allows us to do is, of course, to have way more people power than every other campaign. We are currently at more than 5,000 volunteers on the campaign, which is not only more than every lieutenant governor candidate, it's more than every governor candidate as well. This past weekend, I don't think any of my opponents did a single canvass, didn't knock on a single door. We had 24 canvasses in 24 different cities across the state, from San Diego up to Chico. And it's that kind of grassroots energy that we need to topple these systems that have caused so much harm to our communities. It's this kind of grassroots power building that's going to keep immigrant families safe, that's going to make housing affordable, that's going to divest our public systems from genocide. And, I'm very happy to tell you, in the most recent polls, we are typically second or third on the betting market. I mean, we started in last place in this race. There's 16 candidates, and we probably started in last place. And now in the betting markets, we are third. Now we need to be second by June 2nd, which is only a week and a half away. We're gaining in the polls every single week. So we feel very energized. We feel very close, but we definitely need people to really tune in, get their friends and family to vote, go knock on some doors this weekend, next weekend if you're able to. And hopefully that's enough to get us over the finish line.
I think it's so incredible when people do grassroots because the people volunteering are really part of change,
Yeah.
and it feels so much better than, like you said, a zillion commercials and junk mail, and there's no connection there.
Yes, what we love is training our volunteers to be leaders for us in their communities, to represent us in the communities that they have roots in, making sure that that the community knows what the campaign is about, making sure that their community is up to date about our policies, but also making.
Yikes. I don't know what's going on, guys. I know that he's outside. Is anybody in the chat working on a grassroots campaign right now? I have worked on a couple, and it makes it harder to vote. I'm doing it right now at my local election, and I'm like, I like everybody, just on my city election, but it just is there's so much connection when it's grassroots. I love it.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah.
Do you see the question in the chat? Corporate land speculators hoard California land?
Yes, drive up rent, and you acknowledge this. Would you support a land value tax speculators, and force them to build affordable housing? I do support a property tax on corporate landlords. I don't want to use that to force them to build affordable housing because I don't think we should depend on corporations to build affordable housing. I want government to build affordable housing. So I want the proceeds of that tax to go towards helping regular people buy homes, either through interest-free mortgages or down payment assistance.
I mean, I keep thinking about what you're saying. There's all these units that are empty.
1.2 million units. It's crazy.
What do you say to Democrats who agree with you ideologically, but they worry that you're not gaining enough in the polls? And what do you say to those people?
Well, we definitely are gaining enough in the polls. I think it's very hard to ignore how much momentum we're generating at this point. But that's an argument that the establishment of the party often deploys against people. And my response is the people who caused us to lose to fascism twice in the last 10 years, should not be out there giving advice about how this party or how our politics should be run. I mean, I think to these party establishments who in 2024, the people who decided it was okay to put Biden on that debate stage against Trump, no idea what they're thinking. The people who advised Kamala not to go on Joe Rogan, where 30 million people, mostly young men, tuned in to decide who they were going to vote for. I don't know. I don't even know how these people come to these conclusions. And I think so much of the reason we are in the pit that we are in today is because this is a Democratic Party that routinely tells 80% of its voters to shut up and get in line so they can cash a check from a corporation. It's the same way on Palestine, where almost every Democrat wanted us to stop arming Israel, and the party said no. It's the same when it comes to corporate landlords, where the party or regular people want housing to be for regular people and not for corporate landlords. But the party has done nothing. It's the same with universal health care. It's the same with protecting immigrants. This is a party that takes checks from the for-profit prison companies that are locking up immigrants. And so, of course, they can't vigorously fight for immigrants when they're taking checks from the same people who are profiting from it. And so, if you're going to take money and be corrupt, and then you're going to lose elections over and over again to fascism, you're not in a position to tell anyone what to do or give anybody advice. The least you can do is shut up. But what you should really be doing is elevating these people who do have the right values, who do stand with integrity, who do stand for something inspirational and aspirational. And that is what we need to elevate in our party in order to beat Trump.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with you. What we've been doing is not working clearly, and it's only getting worse, only getting worse. Who is a California leader that you really admire?
Oh, this is actually the first time we've been asked this on the campaign trail.
I like to throw in some good questions that make people think on the spot.
This is great. And after this, let's do one more question, and then I do have to head out. But a California leader I admire is the former mayor of Irvine, Farah Khan. So she was mayor in the city that I grew up in. And what I really admire is she has that quality of a leader who will fight for what is just and what is right, even if it is unpopular. And I think that is the number one trait we need in our leaders. We don't need more career politicians who poll the public to see what the public thinks, and then that's the stances they take. Who, instead of speaking from the heart, they have a bunch of consultants do messaging for them and tell them how to speak. We don't need that. We need people who are willing to stand for justice, even if it's unpopular. Farah is that leader. 2 years ago, when UCI students started their encampments to protest for justice in Palestine, the police were going to go in and break up the encampments. And Farah ordered the police to stand down because the students, they were just peacefully protesting, exercising their First Amendment right to free speech. And she ordered the police to stand down. It was a controversial decision, for sure. And it definitely had, pushback from the other side. But she made it knowing it could be controversial because it was the right thing to do. And that's something I always try to take with me.
I love that. So on Palestine, can you speak on that a little bit for people that might be coming across this live and they're not sure where you stand on that?
Yeah. So I don't think it's controversial to say that our tax dollars should be used on kids here in California, making sure our kids have healthcare, education, housing, instead of bombing kids in another country. Israel has free education and free healthcare for their citizens. We don't have free education. We don't have free healthcare. So why are we giving them billions of dollars every single year to not only help Israelis with whatever they have going on, but also then to help them bomb children and to commit genocide? The reason that's happening is very cynical, which is AIPAC is one of the biggest political donors in the country. And they are electing politicians of their choice who then gives our taxpayer dollars to a foreign country. I don't want us to do that. And so what I really want to do is to protect free speech in our state, making sure people who are defending their free speech, who are defending the safety of Black and brown people and of trans people, they are safe to speak. And then also to divest our state, particularly our universities and their endowments from companies that profit from genocide and apartheid.
I love that. I feel like I could talk to you all day.
Me
I
too. This was
I
so
hope we
fun.
can talk again soon. I know you have to
Uh,
go, but I really appreciate you coming up today. I appreciate you so much.
Thank you for the comment, for the questions. Thank you for polling the people for these questions as well. And I will be in Long Beach again, so I hope to
Okay,
be
yeah, let me
canvassing or
know.
be in this
Let me
fight
know
with
when
you.
you're in town. Let me know when you're in town.
Will do. Thanks so
Okay,
much.
thank
I'll talk
you.
to you soon. Bye,
Okay,
everyone.
bye. Have a good day.
You too.